This is your reminder that the BBC has yet to address the consistent transphobic leanings in its news coverage, and while the team behind Doctor Who is not connected to this in any way since this is a BBC-owned property, I'm going to keep pointing it out until the problem gets resolved. Links in a pinned comment below if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'll stop saying it when it stops being a problem.
Well, we've talked about how things go well when you dangle off a cliff, but they don't always go that way, do they? Well, folks, after I talked about what I thought were the best Doctor Who cliffhangers, I promised you a list of the worst. And I also predicted that some of you are going to be real mad at me for this. And having checked over my list again, some of you definitely are. Let's cover a few things first, just so I can maybe avoid a little bit of the anger. First things first, I'm not dealing with classic Doctor Who cliffhangers. Arguably, some of the most iconic ones, especially some of the most iconic bad ones, are in Doctor Who. So I think it would be remiss of me not to at least acknowledge a few key highlights. I'll point out this one from part 3 of The Pirate Planet, a story which I love, but this one is kind of indicative of the very common issue of clearly that is not going to end the way it obviously displayed itself being. That would be the end of the show otherwise. This is, in my mind, the standard bad cliffhanger, and I'll just use this as an example. More specifically, we've got stuff like this.
There's nothing we can do!
We can't just leave him!
Face it, Tegan! He's drowned!
Proper context on that is if you time it from when the Doctor hits the water to when Turlough declares that he's drowned, it is 10 seconds. Yeah, that one doesn't work too well either. But there is clearly the most iconic cliffhanger and the most literal cliffhanger from Doctor Who. Dragonfire. I'm not putting this out of context. There literally is no context. There is no explanation given for why the Doctor suddenly decides to hang off the edge of a cliff using his umbrella to hold on. It's just a thing he does. Dragonfire is a fascinating story without being a good one. That one's something else. But we're not doing classic, but I thought I'd throw those in for fun. So we are looking at, since the revival in 2005, anything that has come out since then is on the table for worst cliffhangers. Okay. So here's the last bit that I'm going to put in here, trying to get people slightly less mad at me than they might otherwise be, which is, I am not passing judgment on the quality of the story this cliffhanger is in. The resolution of the cliffhanger is not being taken into account at all. And the events of the episode leading up to the cliffhanger, I'm not going to say have no basis in factoring in, but I'm weighing them as little as possible. Like, to a certain degree of cliffhanger might land better or worse depending on the context in which it comes up. Like if it's completely out of nowhere, like that Dragonfire one, it is going to land worse, and that is kind of technically taking what came before into account. But I'm not weighing that very heavily, which means I'm not saying these are bad stories. I'm not even saying they're bad episodes. I am just saying they are bad cliffhangers. And I will try to explain myself, because boy, on some of these, I know I'm going to have to. But let's start at the bottom where hopefully I'll get a little bit less pushback than on others. Number 10, the Zygon invasion. Yeah, there's a number of them on this list that are going to kind of exemplify the typical bad Doctor Who cliffhanger of thing that obviously can't be what it looks like, or imminent threat that is about to kill the Doctor or the companion, and obviously none of that's going to happen, so there's no proper tension in the cliffhanger. We're just back to the days of the 60s Batman series where there's this big dramatic voice, oh, will our heroes survive? And that kind of works in the Batman 60s series because that's camp. Doctor Who, since the revival, has not been purposefully camp very often, and generally these cliffhangers are not. So this kind of thing of doing something like firing a rocket at the plane that the Doctor and other important characters are on has no tension in it. Like, maybe you're intellectually curious, like, how's the Doctor and everybody else going to survive this? But you also know they're going to. So the answer to that is not super interesting. You're just kind of waiting for, like, okay, what's the ridiculous way that this resolves? That's just kind of what it leaves you with. Number 9, human nature. Kind of in the same ballpark because we end on this one with the Family of Blood, one of my favorite one-off villains, by the way. And because, yes, I consider two-parters to be one story, so I do consider villains that only appeared in a two-parter to be a one-off villain, even though they were technically in 2 episodes. I'm tangenting. Sorry. But anyways, despite how much I love the Family of Blood, this idea of we are going to make you choose. Shall we kill your new love or shall we kill your companion? Well, obviously they're not going to kill Martha. It's mid-season. That's not a thing that they're going to do. And maybe you could try and argue, well, okay, but aren't you worried about Nurse Redfern? No, not really, because if they kill her at the start of the next episode, they've completely botched all potential that that character had and removed any point of having her around or having given her so much emphasis in the episode up to that point. So no, I think of them better than to think they do that either. So I know neither of these are going to be what's going to happen. Therefore, again, no real tension to the situation. Just the question, okay, how does neither of the offered options actually happen? Because there's no way either of them will. Number 8. Rise of the Cybermen. Yet again, just the threat slowly closing in, and in this case, adding the annoying aspect of repeating the same thing over and over again. Look, you kind of get away with this with the Daleks when they go exterminate, 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 trying to give the Cybermen their own version with delete, delete, delete. No, it doesn't work. It is very much the knockoff it comes across as. And again, there's no way the Doctor or the companions are about to be murdered. Some of the other people besides them? Yes, quite possibly. Do we care about them? No, not really. Next. Number 7. The Sontaran Stratagem. On paper, a slightly better take on this, because rather than threatening the Doctor or the companion, who, again, midway through the series, we know are both going to be fine, it instead threatens a recurring character who theoretically might die, that being Donna's grandfather, Wilf. And the thing is, it still doesn't really work. First of all, as emotionally gut-punching as Russell T Davies can be, he doesn't do so without ceremony, and there's no ceremony to Wilf choking to death in his car. So again, I never believed for a second that is actually going to be what would happen. And more to the point, there isn't even really that much tension around how will they get him out. He's in a car. All they have to do is get the car open. Like, yes, within universe, oh, it's deadlock sealed, we can't inside. Like, there's a million things you could do. Break a window, break a windshield, break down whatever system's got it locked. Like, all that has to do to resolve this is the door gets opened. Like, that is such a basic solution to what is clearly not going to be a fatal situation as soon as we get into the next episode. And again, regardless of how it resolved, it was very obvious that's not going to happen, and the resolutions are super easy because the things preventing the obvious solution of just get him out of the car were all artificially imposed, meaning they can just be as artificially removed. Number 6, and the first of a couple that I think is going to get people upset at me. The Empty Child. Look! This is one of my favorite two-parters in the entire show. This is one of my favorite stories, period, in the entire show. This is an all-timer. I adore this. The cliffhanger is cheap. Like the whole reveal of the way in which people are transformed by whatever it is that's going on. That's unsettling as hell. But then that unsettling nature is very quickly deflated by giving us the exact same kind of cliffhanger that these things almost always have, which is, oh, our heroes are cornered. How will they survive? I don't know, but I know they're going to. There's no way any one of these three is going to be transformed by that. Not even Jack, who was introduced newly for this story, who, again, could feasibly be in danger. But just as I pointed out with Nurse Redfern before, he has been getting too much emphasis and is too important to the story to just have him die off immediately in the second half of the two-parter. That would be a waste, and I think better of the writers than that. So there's no tension in this. And I say that as someone who is deeply creeped out by the Empty Child. I think it is one of the most terrifying monsters in all of Doctor Who, for reasons I'm not going to get into because I'd be diverging for too long. Besides which, I'm pretty sure I did a video talking about what I thought were the best monsters or the scariest monsters. I feel like I've talked about this at some point, though it might have been long enough ago that I need to revisit it. I need to check that. But regardless, there was no tension in this cliffhanger. They're all going to be fine. I know they're going to be fine. Monsters have them in a corner. Monsters that can't even touch them lest it infect them. So, yeah, obviously, they're not even going to have hands laid on them to resolve this. That's the only way it can move forward. Tension gone. Number 5. Turn left. First of all, welcome to the obligatory one entry in the list in which you don't see my face because I somehow forgot to film this one. I'd say I don't know why that keeps happening, but I have an ADHD diagnosis, so I'd be lying. Anyways, this is another one that I know people are going to get on my butt about because they really love the episode, and a lot of people also claim to like the cliffhanger. I have come around on the episode. I used to be a lot softer on it than I was, especially after initial viewing where I kind of got hung up on how much I hate the design of the space bug. This thing could have been anything, and it's just a big bug. That annoys me on principle. But I've kind of gotten over that, and I've really come to appreciate on rewatches what this one is doing. There's actually a lot, and I deeply appreciate it. I think it's easily one of the best ones of the series it's in. Honestly, one of the best 10th Doctor episodes, full stop. I still don't like the cliffhanger, though. The whole every sign suddenly turns into Bad Wolf is so weird. Like, yes, I get it. Bad Wolf was something that we used to see written in random places, and now it's written everywhere. And somehow to the Doctor, this translates to...
It's the end of the universe.
I'm sorry, what? Since when? How? What is going on? I'm going to contrast this real quick with what I thought was one of the best cliffhangers with the reappearance of the Time Lords in the End of Time Part 1. That one also introduces a new threat that is only kind of tangentially connected to the story that was told in the rest of the episode. And it absolutely leaves you with a ton of unanswered questions, but we still had enough context on the idea of the Time Lords coming back that we got a pretty strong sense that this was huge, even if we didn't know the full scope of it yet. The very idea of Bad Wolf coming back at all is not something that I at least had ever entertained, and so this doesn't leave me with a sense of, oh, that's a big deal. It only leaves me with the confusion and nothing to get me excited to find out the answers. I'm just confused. The only thing that stops it from being a complete non sequitur is the fact that, yes, Rose was in this world and whispered something to Donna. And actually, it is specifically the sign thing and the Doctor going, it's the end of the universe. That's what makes this not work for me. Just Donna whispering to him, Bad Wolf, that works. Like that being the words Rose chooses to make the Doctor realize that something big is coming, that totally works. But then they overstep and I'm just left scratching my head going, what the hell was that? And I know I'm in a minority on this one, and I know y'all are going to get mad at me. I'm sorry, I think this cliffhanger overstepped and kind of swept its own legs out from under it. That's part of why it's this high up. It was almost great, and then it dropped the ball. It did for me at least, and that makes it sting just a little bit more. Number 4. The time of the angels. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me explain. Okay? Put the pitchfork down. Put it down. Put it down. This is the one that I know I'm going to get so many people up in arms about. Listen to me and hear me out as to why I think this cliffhanger fails, because it's for a pretty specific reason. And no, it's not the angels closing in on them. That doesn't really help, but that's not the problem here. The problem is the very specific moment that the episode ends on, because we have the weeping angels closing in, which, terrifying, absolutely is being sold very well as they get ever closer. You have this little mini speech.
If you value your continued existence, if you have any plans about seeing tomorrow, there's one thing you never ever put in a trap.
It's not his best, but it's solid enough. That works for sure. And then he does this. What the hell was that? That was my very honest reaction first time I saw this, because I was watching it as it aired by this point. And I remember just feeling all the tension leave me and just being replaced by confusion. What the hell did he just do? What did he shoot? What was that? And even after I backed it up on my DVR, because that's how long ago that this nonsense was. It wasn't yet standard to be able to rewind stuff. You had to have set it up to record on a DVR. Hi, I'm old. I still have VHSs in the attic that my grandmother recorded for me off of her TV. Anyways, I'm in my 40s. It's fine. Regardless, even when I backed up and realized that it was the gravity globe, the fact that they call it a gravity globe didn't negate the fact that functionally it was just a light bulb. So I had no idea what shooting this thing was meant to accomplish. So here's the argument I'm making as to why I think this is a bad cliffhanger. If you are like me and you don't know what the hell it was he just shot, or even if you do, you don't know how that was supposed to help in any way, then all the tension vanishes from your head, or at least does if you think the way I do, and you're left going, what was that? And like any tension or concern is just replaced with confusion. Or if by some chance you figured out what the hell it was meant to accomplish, well, then you already know how the cliffhanger resolves. Neither of which I think is a particularly good outcome for your cliffhanger moment.
Hey, it's Vera from The Edit. While working on editing this, something occurred to me as to why both this and the previous one might be rated more highly in people's minds than they are in mine. And I think it's the music. Both this one and the cliffhanger from Turn Left use some of the best tracks that Murray Gold had made. All the Strange, Strange Creatures and I Am the Doctor, respectively. And I will admit that those tracks can sweep you up into the moment a bit. But for me, hype fades, and I'm just left with my feeling about the writing, and the music doesn't cover for that. Anyway, back to original me.
Honestly, if it had just stopped at him pulling the trigger, that would have been fine. It's literally just that one shot. It's showing the explosion of the globe that just results in, what? Because while I don't think it would have been a great cliffhanger if they just shown him firing but not shown what he shot, it would have at least have left me wondering, wait, what did he just do? But say you show me what he did, but it answers no questions in the immediate sense. Or if it does lead me to figure out the answers to the questions, then there's still no tension because I know what he did. One shot ruins this. It could have been great. It's not, though. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I stand by it. Number 3, Ascension of the Cybermen. This one ranks as high as it does simply on the basis of being an almost complete non sequitur. Because a portal opens up, there's Gallifrey on the other side, and there's the Master. Why? We don't know. What does that have to do with literally anything that has gone on in the episode up to this point? We don't know. Spoiler, and when you get to the second half, basically nothing. Deciding to cliffhang on this moment is so strange because it does not meaningfully connect as presented in any way to what's been going on up to this point. It's just a totally random thing that happens. And ultimately, if you see both two-parters, it's still kind of a random thing that happens. This isn't going to get meaningfully connected later, but again, the resolution of a cliffhanger isn't either a further detriment or a saving grace for any of this stuff. But it is true that this has nothing to do with what's been going on. Like, we're dealing with the Cybermen, the last vestiges of humanity. Maybe we can get these people off this planet. Maybe we can get them to safety. Oh, hey, look, it's the Master and Gallifrey. What? Why? What? What? Why? Number 2, Daleks in Manhattan. This one's kind of unique for landing this high on the list almost entirely because of a visual, which normally I don't hold visuals against Doctor Who that much. Like, I'll judge if something doesn't look great. Like, I can talk all day long about how the talking babies and space babies don't look great, but also I have a recognition of the budgetary limitations of Doctor Who, and if there is at least a solid idea behind that visual, usually I'll be willing to give it a pass. And admittedly, there is a solid idea behind the visual at the end of Daleks in Manhattan, because the idea of Daleks deciding that the reason they keep being defeated is because since they treat themselves as the pinnacle of everything, they don't allow themselves to evolve, they don't allow themselves to change. And so this radical, certainly for a Dalek, this radical concept of integrating with a completely different species is an interesting new direction to take at least a small group of Daleks in. The problem is it results in this thing with the very phallic-looking wiggly tentacle bits, and he says this as his first line.
I am a human Dalek.
Yeah, that is overcooked. Really, really badly. Like, it just looks so terrible. It looks cheap, but also like, did you not run this design by anybody? Did you not allow for feedback? Did you not ask just normal people on the crew? Does this look like weird or objectionable or anyway? Because, dang, man, that thing belongs in hentai porn, not in Doctor Who. I bet you there's art drawn of that. Hang on.
Intermission time.
Well, I'm gonna have to scrub that from my search history. Moving on. So let's talk about what I think is the worst cliffhanger in modern Doctor Who. Number 1, Survivors of the Flux. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. I know I said I wasn't taking the episode up to that point into account. I kind of have to in this case because what makes it truly bad is contextual. And I mean, it's not good regardless. But if it wasn't for the fuller context, this would probably be still on the list, but a lot lower. The reason that this is number 1 has to do with the specific context. But just broadly speaking, it's the same thing we've run into over and over and over again. It is the enemies that we know want to kill the Doctor, reaching, in this case, reaching out because we know just their touch is deadly. So, they're reaching for the Doctor, and the Doctor's gonna be fine. We know that. Yeah, there'll be a regeneration eventually, but it hasn't been announced yet, so she'll be fine. Maybe they were kind of hoping that maybe people would think that since we're leading into the finale of this series that maybe it could be a regeneration, but like, I don't think anybody actually believed that. It's just the usual, we're gonna get you, Doctor, but we know you're not gonna. That in and of itself is already bad. But that's the typical bad. That's the quintessential bad cliffhanger. But then there's this. The fact that just before reaching for the Doctor, they kill Tecteun. Now, look. Pretty much everything around the Timeless Child reveal. Not only do I think is it a fundamentally not great idea, but ultimately my biggest beef with that entire thing is not its core concepts, though I don't like a lot of them. What ultimately pisses me off is that Chibnall didn't do anything with it. You know, when the Timeless Child thing first happened, I said, I don't like this, but I am at least curious to see what story he intends to tell that he thought he couldn't tell unless he did this first. And the answer ended up being, nothing. What he does next has absolutely nothing to do with any of that and didn't require him to do that. So it was just a thing that he did. That meant nothing. And Tecteun is part of that. This is supposedly the Doctor's mother, adoptive mother, mother figure, whatever. That in and of itself already has no meaning because we had no idea who she was, nor did the Doctor until effectively like 5 episodes ago. We only just met her in person and she's been nothing but an exposition machine. Now, could you do something interesting with this twisted mother figure and the Doctor's own conflicted feelings about that and how she represents a version of Gallifrey that might well be the worst version of Gallifrey, the very thing that the Doctor frequently fought against? Sure, you could absolutely do something with that. They don't. And it removes any possibility that they ever will do anything with it by having frickin' what's his damn name? I can't even remember. What is his name? Swarm! His name's Swarm. God, you wonder why I can't remember the names of these frickin' people. Generic as hell. Great. And also completely unrepresentative. You'd think with a name like Swarm, he'd be like, I don't know, part of a hive mind or something. But no, it's just a villainous sounding name that this episode. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You've got him come in and kill Tecteun, which means that she was never a character. She was just an exposition dump. She was never going to be used to explore anything about anything. Not with the Doctor, not with the concepts supposedly introduced through her conceptualization as a character. It proves immediately how useless she was. And the story, next episode, I know I said I wasn't taking the resolution of Cliffhangers into account. Forgive me, I'm on a rant right now. But the very next episode is going to prove that there really was no purpose in any of the ideas of what was quote unquote really going on or where the Doctor really came from, because it's all literally going to get thrown down a hole in the TARDIS and not brought up again. Why is any of this here? And that is what gets this to number 1. It's already a bad cliffhanger on the basic mechanics of what I think makes a good or bad cliffhanger. But then you add into it the just immediate dissolution, the dissolving literally before our eyes of any potential of a character that is meant to mean something to the Doctor, mean something to the Doctor's history, mean something to the history of Gallifrey, and now never will because she's dead. What was the goddamn point? And that's why I think that is the worst cliffhanger that modern era Doctor Who has given us. Yeah, I know people are mad at me about some of these. Hopefully I explain myself well enough. For some, we'll see. What do you think are some of the worst cliffhangers? I know there's other ones that people don't like that they are going to throw out there, but keep in mind, if you are keeping to my criteria, it's not about them being in bad stories, because there are plenty of perfectly fine or at least decent cliffhangers in stories that are otherwise not great. But I don't know, it's your comment. You can use your own criteria for how you want to handle it. Whatever your thoughts might be, drop them down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, would have gotten you access to this video early, and also the version that's on Patreon is ad-free. There are other perks as well, so I hope you'll consider checking that out. It is what lets me keep doing this. But even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe, those all help, but don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, you are loved. You are the council, I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lutfula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twylord, Tracy Scrabbit, Paul Barabajoggle, Magdalena, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Additionally, to thank some folks from the lower tiers of support, Lee and Andy, Gavin Hinden, and I Am Orcus. We have some new friends. We have Peppercorn and... where'd the other one go? Where'd you go? Coriander has gone behind my head. They are very young and they haven't been integrated with the other rats yet, but soon. Okay, yes. Maybe you weren't quite camera ready.